Hello, today we're listening to entries from the January 2024 composing competition. This is part 2, so I've already given feedback on the first 7, and now we're going to do 7 more. So that should have come out last week. If I release these when I think I will. So go check that out if you want to, and let's get going. Next one we have is Digital Darlings. Nice. So that first marker, I ended up not putting too many markers through. That first marker was because when the saxophone came in, I was like, yes. I think that's just so perfect. It's a perfect instrument choice for this picture. I feel like synths and saxophone was a really nice choice. I think that really goes well with Hardy Fowler's image. So part of probably how this would have responded with the judges, I think I mentioned in the other video, I interpreted this picture much more on the romantic side and more about the relationship, and they were much more interested in the city and technology and kind of the cyberpunk aspect. So you and I both are on the wrong side of their opinion, I guess. So this is definitely more on the romantic relationship side, and that's an issue. I really like this. I don't have a lot of comments. I won't get into specifically what they were. There were a few chord choices that kind of caught my ear, and it's a little, I would say, differently than maybe how I would have resolved them. But I think that is not necessarily that it was wrong. It's just kind of like different tastes. I don't have a lot to say about this. I think probably also in the this feedback is in the context of competitions. Or the way these competitions go, like how many have we done? We've done 8 or 9 of these now. So I know that the pieces that do well tend to be much more on the kind of film score-y side, or like video game cutscene side, where it's a very a storytelling experience, I think, for the most part. And so maybe this sounds ridiculous, but maybe like a third section, just like a little more happening, might help for the context. Like again, musically, what you've done makes sense, but maybe that we have this kind of first romantic piece, and then kind of the band comes in, and then we resolve it one more time, like with the strings come into or something that takes it up just one more notch. Maybe that's the way to put it. That this one more extra kick, because right now you can see it's very clearly 2 halves, and both of those 2 halves are fairly static, we'll say. Which again, I said, like, musically they work, they make sense, but a little more drama and a little more twists and turns for the competition context would probably help it stand out along. But overall, I think sound quality is really good, and I enjoyed it. Okay, next we have Imoseyama. Nice. Yeah, there's really a lot of nice stuff in there. I especially like the instrument choices, and I feel like the specific synths and other elements really fit really nicely. I think they're really good. My very first comment was a kind of superficial one, but this dead air at the beginning is just so unnecessary. The track needs to start there, and we've kind of lost a second. So when you are presenting tracks to people, if this is on your reel or you're trying to get production music library or something, people are flipping through tracks, and if they have to sit through a second of dead air, they'll assume the track is not working or something, and they'll move on. People just have no attention span, so they'll be like, nope, next one. Like, I'd already made that decision before the music had even started, so we start here. There it starts. So somebody else had their track ended too short and didn't leave it right out, and this is the opposite problem. And it starts too late. There's just that dead air. So I would look into that. I did also like there was a bit of an Asian influence, which, partly the name Imoseyama, some sort of mountain, I guess. But I thought that was nice because I feel like the umbrella in the picture does kind of suggest that flavoring as well. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to catch what some of my other thoughts were. Oh yeah, so it was feeling. I did like. I like this one. I think this is pretty cool. I think maybe this marker was here. I think I was feeling like it was a bit thin in that kind of middle layer of the body there. So it was a kind of low bass thing, and there's the plucking coda type thing. I could have used a little more support in the middle, I think. Man, this video, the first video was very different than this one. I feel like I'm having less to say overall. So hopefully you caught the first video if you didn't see this one. Yeah, this is pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna go on to the next one. Last meeting. Very interesting. Just a broad comment. I could use a little more of a compression on the master because it was just a little extreme between kind of some of the quiets and the louds, especially just bringing up some of that quiet stuff a little more. I think would be nice to kind of balance that out. You can kind of see the waveform is kind of all over the place. So not that we want to like squash it completely like a pop rock track or anything, but there's a balance, right? And so if we can get 20% closer, it would be a little easier to listen to. There's some really interesting ideas in here. I think my overall impression is it's maybe a little, I don't want to say unpredictable, but kind of, that it's a little bit of just kind of wandering through these cool ideas a little bit. In it, not that unpredictable is bad, but sometimes unpredictable in a way that you're like, I don't really know where this is going, so I can't quite latch onto it, kind of way, I guess. Not that we need a steady groove the whole time, but maybe a little. I guess it's back to that balance idea. Maybe a little more of a kind of steady structure in parts would help. I think overall, in the context of the competition, it's a little too thin and kind of lacking the pizzazz and the fullness that tends to do well for these competitions. So I need more stuff. I think you've kind of played out like, hey, here's a bunch of cool ideas that I could work with. And now you need to take these cool ideas and maybe structure them into something that's a little more consumer palatable, we'll say, meaning like a little more like ABA structure or like an ABC or something that's a little easier to kind of follow, I guess, and fuller. So a bit more stuff going on. Maybe it's a drum groove, seems to fit pretty well. Most people have taken that path, or some sort of kind of rhythmic element would probably be cool. Yeah, because a lot of interesting colors and ideas. I think I could just use some more, would be my general thoughts. Okay, let's go on to One Last Time. Cool. I made that marker near the beginning the same way I did with an earlier track when it started with the saxophone, and I was like, yeah, saxophone. When I did a track, I should have done saxophone. I think that's totally awesome. This is really strong. I really like this. Not a lot of specific comments. I think this is another one where I made comments on an earlier track. I think it was the last one of the first video, so you might have to go check that. About having a few more kind of special moments, a unique fill that stands out, or like the whole ensemble kind of does some some hits together or something. These kind of like, in that video I referenced a quote from another music producer who says they try to have 7 or 8 of those kind of special moments. And you've got a few, but I could use 6 more, probably, or 5 more or something like that, of these kind of like, whoa, that was this really special ear candy stuff. You've got some, I think, just a couple more spots where, you can kind of see it in the waveform. It's kind of steady and the same, and the melody and harmony is doing a nice job of kind of telling a story there, but we can also use kind of rhythm and texture and these other things to break it up and kind of give us some space or give us this kind of contrast, even just for like a moment. I think that would really help. So I like this a lot. I would suggest a couple more ear candy moments, a couple more like fills or something that would be unique and kind of stand out as like, ooh, I got to go back and hear that again, because I think it's in pretty good shape overall. All right, the next one we have is Ryan Leach Comp Jan 2020-24. So obviously it doesn't really affect the music, but a title is important. So, you know, if you can't think of a title, just ask ChatGPT or something. You know, like you got to do something. You got to give it something. One Last Time is just so much more meaningful than Ryan Leach Comp Jam 2024. So, something to think about. But here we go. Cool. Yeah, I think that's a really cool texture. I guess my issue is that that's all it is. It's a really cool texture. I almost imagine this being like a 90-second intro to like a Dead Mouse track, and then we're gonna have like the 5 minutes of like, okay, now the beat's gonna drop, you know, and we're like going. So this is like a 6-minute track that is missing the last 5 minutes or something. And the reason for that, the reason it feels like an intro is because other than the fact that it swells, nothing really happens necessarily. It's just kind of like a build. I mean, it kind of feels like even we never even quite hit a climax or a peak. You just kind of decided that this was the moment you were going to come back down. And I don't even know how you chose this moment instead of this one necessarily. It's just kind of so it was a texture. It was a cool texture. I like the sound of it, but it just felt like an introduction to some, an introduction getting ready, and we didn't ever get to the main event. The progression felt very, I don't even want to say classical. I want to say Baroque. Like there was kind of it was the Baroque. I guess it was the violin was helping it do, but the chord progression in that Baroque feeling didn't quite feel futuristic to me at all. It felt old, from hundreds of years ago kind of feeling. So I didn't quite gel with that. That actually was kind of a bump almost actually every time it kind of did the turn that I think Handel would have done too, was a bit of a like distraction. And the overall vibe, the first marker I put down was that it's dark and not, something's not right. There's some tension here. And the picture, it may be like a gritty city. Maybe it actually could be a pretty cool city. We don't know. But, there's it seems to be an intimate moment, or at least a positive moment, I think. Whatever's going on with these people is not threatening. And this has much more of a kind of Batman vibe. This is more of a dark underbelly of the city, So I think that is a big part of it, is kind of it's too dark and it's too mysterious. And also it's just, like I said, it's kind of it's the introduction to a main event that we never quite got to that main event. So maybe cut that down to 10-20 seconds and then be like, where does this go? And if that brought in some like sick beat at 30 seconds, we'd be rocking it. It would be amazing. Although not quite as dark, I think. All right, next we have Undo the Sky. nice. That's really beautiful. This is another one where, oh man, I wish you had another 10 or 20 seconds. I feel like I could have used a little more time to exit, to kind of feel it come back down and go. So I don't know what you would have. I'm not suggesting anywhere that you could take out, but I wish you could take out 5 or 10 seconds to give us some more time at the end. It's really lovely. I thought it was really nice. It sounds good. The you made the same mistake I did, I guess, which was to prioritize the romance. I think you prioritize the romance to a fault. I hear the marker I made around here. I was like, okay, this is the first time I'm getting any hint of the tech, and the picture is very clearly the futuristic and techie and sci-fi, right? So it needs a lot more of that, the sci-fi aspect, I think. It was too much. 98% the romance, and it needs, even to my taste, it needs more of the tech side of things. And then based on how the judges interpreted it, it needs a way more of the tech stuff. But that would be that's the main comment, I guess. Is just that it's really beautiful, it's lovely, but it's missing a big part of kind of the scene. It's inside the characters' heads, and it's kind of missing the whole world around them, I guess. Like I said, it's a mistake. I wrote a track anonymously, and it got denied as well, and I think it's for that similar reasons, that just didn't acknowledge enough of the city and the kind of cyberpunk aesthetic with it. But really nice. All right, the last one we have is Words Above Purple Clouds. Cool. I like that little swell at the ending. That's a nice touch. I also like that you had an ending, like a whole ending section. Is something we've talked about. Some of the other tracks were really missing because they just wanted to keep going and didn't give time for a proper out. So I think that's really good. So some general thoughts. I'm missing. It's kind of sad. It's on the sadder, dark side, for sure. So I'm missing. It doesn't feel like it fits the picture to me, really. I think it's missing the tech side completely, and it's missing the positive aspect of these lovers. I think they don't look like they're breaking up. They look like they're happy to. I guess you can't see their faces, but there's this overall impression that they want to be together, and it's a special moment. So I think as far as the relevance of the image side, it's missing on those parts. If you are going to feature a solo instrument, you want to make sure it sounds good, and your solo cello and violin are not convincing at all. Like they sound MIDI, and so putting them front and center like that is a bold move. I wouldn't recommend it. The other sounds, the synths and pianos and like little percussive elements and stuff that don't sound so fake work. So maybe you should be leaning into those. like so much of the library track music I've done, I don't have a budget for live musicians for that stuff. So I rely on instruments like pianos and harps and marimbas and things that sound fairly convincing even when they're MIDI. And I would never use like a solo MIDI violin so exposed like that because it's distracting. It's like very clearly not a real player. And that you don't want me thinking about that. You don't want me aware that like that violin's not real because that's what I'm thinking about now. And I'm thinking about, I wonder what samples he's using. And I wonder, you don't want that at all. So, unfortunately, sometimes the technology can limit what we have available to us. An alternate thing you could do is hop on Fiverr and find a violinist. Obviously not. I don't recommend people spend money in order to enter the competition. It's not for that, but it's for your own music and your piece, and for for your reel and for your art and whatever else. So, if you want to make it the best it can, hire a real violinist. But again, I'm not suggesting people like try to spend money on live players as a way to get ahead in these internet competitions. That's not at all what I mean. But that the cello and violin were most of what I was thinking about. I guess a lot. That stood out a lot, and the overall, it was kind of sad, and it didn't quite capture the city or kind of the scene for me at all. But I did think it is nice that you kind of took it through. You actually had kind of carved a story out of it, and you hadn't had actually an intro and an ending and all that. And I think it was a real positive. All right, that is it. We've done 14 of these, 7 of the other video, 7 in this one. As I'm recording this, the April 2024 competition is currently ongoing. We'll put a link in the description to the Composing Competitions channel where you can check that out. You still have a couple weeks left. By the time this goes up, maybe not so much. But I hope you guys are enjoying doing these. And, by the way, all the people who we just heard contacted me through our Discord group. I put a message on Discord to say, hey, who wants feedback on their tracks? Send me a message. And then they're the ones who did. So if you are joining these competitions and you want feedback, if I do this again on a future one, that would be the way to be able to participate. So come join us on the Discord. There's also a link to that in the description. All right, thanks so much, guys, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.